Hello and welcome to Caged In Presents Coppola Connections, as ever brought to you by the Breadcrumbs Collective and hosted by me, Petros Patsilivas. If you're new to the podcast, what we do over here is we watch every single film in the collective Coppola family filmography to determine are they the greatest film family of all time. This week is episode 32, and I'm joined by somebody who is a part of the film family himself, Jack Gregson, and we are here to discuss the 2011 Green Hornet, starring Seth Rogen, Jay Chow, and a few other people, but we'll get into that in a couple of moments. As is always the way on this podcast, we will be spoiling this film rotten. We will talk about stuff that happens in the third act. We'll be talking about all of it. We will be going punch by punch, gas gun by gas gun through this film. So if you want to check out now and watch the film, feel free to do so, and we'll catch you in a hot minute. This episode was tons of fun to record, and I must thank Jack for jumping in quite short notice on this one. As you'll hear throughout the episode, both of us were quite ill at the time of recording. I've cut out all the coughs and splutters that we do, but my voice definitely deteriorates through the podcast. To the end, I'm speaking like this, but still, it is a lot of fun. We get giddy, we get silly, we go all over the place with this episode. I hope you do enjoy it. So I guess that all that's left to do is to take over your father's newspaper empire after his untimely death, become a vigilante with his mechanic, and go head to head with an insecure supervillain as we make some Coppola connections. This week, we're looking at a film about a millionaire playboy who decides to become a vigilante crime fighter after the death of his parents. With the help of his butler and a host of gadgets, he decides to clean up the streets of the city he loves. It's, of course, the feature-length adaptation of the 60s hit TV show about everyone's favourite crime-fighting duo, the Green Hornet. Released in 2011, directed by Michel Gondry, with a script by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. The film stars Seth Rogen, Jay Chow, Diaz, and Christoph Waltz. The film's cinematographer is today's Coppola connection, our boy, the man with the golden eye, John Schwartzman. Joining me to decide if this film is a washed-up, bloated mess or a bona fide superhero smash is a man well-versed in bad films, but not any bad films. Those produced by Happy Maddison Productions, is one half of the great Truly Happy Maddison podcast, Jack Gregson. How are you today, Jack?
I'm good. I'm windswept, is what I am. Yeah, don't know if you heard about this, but there's been some wind today.
There's been a lot of wind. There's been a wind.
And we're about to blow some more wind. Us old windbags here talking about movies.
Obviously, today of recording, we just got something that obviously you would be excited about, a trailer for a new Adam Sandler film. Obviously, your podcast, Truly Happily Madison, looks at the films of Adam Sandler and his production company. What did you think of the trailer for Hustle?
Hustle is life. Hustle is love. Hustle is what we need to get society back on track. I don't know. Like it's Adam Sandler talking about basketball. Like it looks cool, I guess. Sure. I have no idea. It's definitely in this sort of serious Adam Sandler realm, which the Happy Maddison efforts of that are definitely mixed. Reign Over Me is atrocious. Funny People is the greatest film ever made. So it's a hard one to judge where that's gonna be. Sandler loves basketball, so yeah, it's gonna be fun. And who can doubt LeBron James's producing skills after Space Jam: A New Legacy?
I think one of the things, like you raising the point of Funny People and Reign Over Me, is when I immediately think of those two films, I think of Funny People, first and foremost, as a Judd Apatow film. Reign Over Me, I think of as an Adam Sandler film. And I think there's the distinct difference between those two.
You don't think of it as a 9/11 film?
Or like, do you know what I mean? Like when it comes to like who is the kind of big name draw for that? As much as Sandler is for Funny People, it's like kind of, I don't know, the legacy of it is the next like Judd Apatow film. It's not so much.
It was that period where Judd Apatow ruled all of comedic cinema. Something I can't imagine ties into our topic today at all.
Well, yeah, we can. It definitely will. It definitely will. When looking at the connections for this film, all roads lead back to Funny People.
Did you watch the Hustle trailer? Did you?
I did, and I'm not kind of sure what to make of it yet. It looks a bit self-serious in that way that Adam Sandler might love something, but doing a film about something you love isn't necessarily always the best thing to do. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes actors, and as we've seen with Adam Sandler, him outside of his comfort zone, whether it is Uncut Gems or Punch Drunk Love, they're when he's at his most exciting. It's when he's kind of in his comfort zone in Hawaii with his friends and a pretty woman
he's
on
in
his
Spain
arm.
For this one.
Oh, love what?
I mean, it's
in Hustle. He's in Spain.
Yeah,
oh, nice.
Yeah. Spain. He's in Spain. He's got Queen Latifah's there. I don't know. I think I'm curious. I'm just like I sent Josh, my co-host on Truly Happily Madison, the trailer, and his response was, "Oh my god, I love it! I can't wait! That's an exclusive for you there."
Amazing.
And so he's on board, which is great. I don't know. I want it to be good. I had the distinct feeling. Happy Maddison has never covered basketball properly. Like, there's never been a full basketball movie from them. It's been within the genre of the oeuvre of Happy Maddison movies. It pops up in Little Nicky and Grown Ups. But this is the full time that he's devoting a whole motion picture to it. But at the same time, the last film we got from Happy Maddison was Kevin James starring in Home Team, which is an absolute disaster of a movie. And that sports movie vibe is still hanging heavy upon it. And I'm just like, ugh.
Well, I guess if the full IMDb credits are out for Hustle, as long as it hasn't got the kind of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, whether it be Rob Schneider, Alan Covert, I'm trying to think who else.
Jared Sandler.
Yeah, Nick Swardson maybe. He feels like he could be gunning for a four horsemen of the apocalypse to make a bad.
But hopefully, the Angel of Mercy, Peter Dante, will pop up.
Yes, we can all but hope. Well, obviously,
not completely off topic, but I was just I've been watching the Larry Sanders Show from the beginning, and Peter Dante popped up in that the other day, and it's one of his first on-screen roles, and I was just like, oh, look at him, he's glorious.
Yeah, to pull on the Peter Dante thread, would have been like late last year. Somebody I randomly follow on Instagram just posted a video of Peter Dante like at an LA bar, like just kind of going, "Hey man, what's going on? What's going on?" He's not looking his best these days. No. But I don't know.
We tried to get a cameo from him for an episode of Truly Happily Madison to celebrate us wrapping up all the current movies, and he rejected our request.
Oh, what a shame, Peter! He could have had a few. He could have had a few more beers in that LA bar if only it was for you guys. Oh, what a shame. Well, we've talked about one cinematic family being the Happy Maddison family. Let's talk about another, Jack, and I want to know your Coppola credentials. So, first of all, when did you first become aware of the Coppolas as this kind of entity of a family? What was your entry point, and when did you realise that shit, there's fucking loads of them?
I mean, probably like the first time, like when I was 13, I was like very into Lost in Translation, as that's when it came out, and I knew it was directed by Sofia Coppola, and I knew that name meant something. And that's probably my first. Like, I don't think I knew the whole breadth of it until I started talking to you. You dumped this on my doorstep, and now I'm fully invested. But I mean, yeah, I remember like learning about Nick Cage's connection through like watching Fast Times and that kind of stuff.
Were there any like, holy shit, how is this person connected to the family for you? They're like I know for some people when I send them the list of films to cover, they're like, why are we going to be talking about this film? Like, I think you did it yourself. You're like, what actually is the connection here? Who did what in this film?
I mean, because I don't know, I guess I've just coming from a minor celebrity family myself. I just assumed that all these people are connected. I guess it stopped blowing my mind, and again, like after like covering like the Happy Maddison movies, and suddenly you notice that like Sandler gets the whole family involved, and like his wife's brother wrote Home Team and all this kind of like crud. I guess it doesn't blow my mind that much. You know what? I'm just happy to know that like there's like a nice big family and they all work in the business together. Like, they must be close. I mean, imagine going like that around there for like Valentine's Day dinner.
Yes, yeah. Well, yeah, and we're going to be during our chat on the Green Hornet, we're going to be talking about another kind of family within the movie making business, who are the Armstrongs, who are this amazing stunt family.
Vic Armstrong, director of Left Behind.
Yeah, Vic Armstrong and his whole family are like these amazing team of stunt coordinators and stunt performers who kind of worked on this film and have on the Blu-ray their own like special feature documentary all about their stunt work on this movie.
Oh man, I am so annoyed that my Blu-ray copy of this film is at my parents' house. My 3D Blu-ray copy of this film. My 3D Blu-ray steelbook of this film.
Yeah, I've got a steelbook. I'm not sure if it's the 3D one, but I picked it up recently. Somebody was just like, I'm selling all these like steelbooks. This one's sealed. Does anyone want it? And I was like, how much for the Green Hornet? Just like a real creep, just straight in the DMs. Like, what the fuck do you want that for? And it's just because I have this weird obsession that I just have to own every single Coppola family film on physical. So like, one day I'll be like one of those crazy hoarders, and I'll just be like killed by a stack of like DVDs, and they'll be like, what's the link here? And it's like, they're all the Coppola family. They've killed him. They finally got him.
As I'm sure you can tell, I'm not really interested in physical media.
No, not at all. Not at all.
I'm purely digital these days.
As I speak to Jack right now, those of you listening can't see this, but he is he's got a Zoom background, which is just a load of Blu-rays and DVDs.
Oh my god, where did these come from?
I thought it was a digital background. I thought maybe you would put yourself inside the Criterion closet.
That's a good idea for a digital background. I'm just curious if I can reach for anything. What will it be? What movie will I pick out? Oh, it's a double pack of The Rescuers and The Rescuers Down Under.
Oh, lovely. No Coppola connection there, so better luck next time. Maybe throughout the chat, I'll ask you to blind pick, and we'll see if you.
Is Coppola not related to Bob Newhart in any way?
Unfortunately, not. So
you'd think.
You said, Jack, that you're from a minor celebrity family yourself, and you've worked in TV and film, and kind of you live in the big city of London. Have you ever met a Coppola at all?
Yeah. Nah.
No, never crossed paths, never rubbed shoulders with Jason Schwartzman, or been in the same room as Sophia at the BFI or something like that.
Actually, I wonder have I been in the same room as Sophia? I don't think I have. If I have, the closest thing would have been like a Q&A at the LFF.
Nice.
I can't remember if she did one when I went to see Somewhere. I'm trying to think. I'm almost shocked that I'm not in the Coppola family, to be honest. Like,
the Gregson
I feel
branch.
like Natasha Gregson Wagner is someone who would have married in. But no, she's married to someone else.
So, what would have been the first film you would have seen that John Schwartzman have had any involvement in? Have you done your homework on this question, or do you need to IMDb it right now?
Maybe I have done my homework on this question that I'm looking up right now. Probably I was introduced to the work of John Schwartzman through 1999's EdTV.
Nice. A weird pick, but I remember weirdly being fascinated by that film when, like, seeing the trailers and stuff like that, and I was just like, I don't know, I was weirdly drawn to it, and I remember catching it on like Channel 4 or something when it eventually hit terrestrial TV.
I remember renting it on VHS and not being too impressed as a 9-year-old. I think I was sort of better introduced into the world of John Schwartzman through so cinematically, is meaning that I saw it in a cinema. Meet the Fockers is probably the one that stands out for me. It's a gorgeous looking film. It's lit beautifully, and it really captures that sort of hellish environment that it's set in. That sort of, is it like Florida?
Yeah.
Florida, maybe.
The framing he gets on that kid as he says "asshole" is absolutely
asshole.
Is a chef's kiss moment. Yeah,
it's good. It's. I'm surprised Meet the Fockers didn't pop up more in the awards conversation that year, to be honest.
I'm surprised it's not talked about every day.
I'm more surprised more than anything. Like what happened to Peter James, cinematographer on Meet the Parents? Why they get rid of him?
I think that series had a different cinematographer for each film as well. So yeah, because John Schwartzman's just there for the middle. He's not there for Little Fockers. He kind of does that. He kind of like dips in and out of franchises at the moment.
He does Book of Secrets as well, right?
Yes, he does Book of Secrets. He did Jurassic World. Didn't do Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, but is back for Dominion. So some people...
Well, the director has returned for Dominion from the first Jurassic World, so he's like
Colin Trevorrow. Yeah.
Colin Trevorrow. He's Colin Trevorrow's guy.
He is. Who also directed The Book of Henry, a film that will be discussed soon on this podcast.
Amazing. What joy. I also see that he did the Middle Night at the Museum movie.
Yeah, he's the middle guy. He's the middleman. John Schwartzman is the middleman, and but we're joking about him, but obviously, he can be credited as almost being a hand in the Michael Bay look, because obviously he was the cinematographer on both The Rock and Armageddon. So whether you love it or hate it, he helped create that Michael Bay aesthetic.
And Pearl Harbor.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
I just meant like those early films where he's kind of really working out his style.
Yeah, no, completely. I was once on a date with a lady, who she taught film or media, and I remember she got quite offended with me when I said that, like, technically Michael Bay is a good filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
She got mostly because I was like, well, his films, they have a look to them, and they have a style to them that is his own, and in a way, he is successful in that. And perhaps that, and she was just like, oh, I can't believe you're saying Michael Bay is a good filmmaker. And I was like, well, I mean, give him his due in a way. Like, I gotta say, Ambulance looks great. So,
Thank you. Yeah. I'm beating that drum as well. Yeah, no, I totally know what you mean. It's like he has achieved what he set out to achieve. Whether you like that or not is a different matter altogether. Whether the actual product itself is any good is different. It looks how it's supposed to look.
I don't think I've liked a single Michael Bay movie just looking at like his career. I've never seen The Rock. I hear that's good. But I saw 4 of the Transformers movies. I don't like any of his movies, but I do think he is successful as a filmmaker.
Yes, that is a good takeaway. I would thoroughly recommend The Rock, not just because I'm a Nicolas Cage fan, but it's a fantastic, fun, silly film. Check it out, Joe.
I'm on board for The Rock. I'd like to watch it.
I think it's on Disney Plus, so you got no excuse.
I think I own it on Blu-ray.
Amazing. Yeah, I own it on a couple of different formats now because I bought.
You got the US Criterion.
I don't know. I think
I have the US Criterion.
I have a French Criterion copy of Armageddon on DVD, but the
Armageddon.
The English DVD just has all of the like special features transported over because like even in one of the commentaries they refer to the Criterion collection because like they go like, oh, thanks for Criterion for inviting us to do this. It's like, oh, okay, I guess we've got I
remember like the Chasing Amy DVD was like the UK DVD was like a direct lift of the Criterion like US DVD.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's weird stuff with like DVD commentaries and stuff like that. I'm always like fascinated to track down a US copy of The Wicker Man because Neil LaBute says, I'm talking about the Nicolas Cage Wicker Man here, says on the UK commentary, he's like, oh, this is like a European commentary track, and it's like, why do you need a separate commentary track for Europe? Like, why are we getting the kind of the second go around? Do you know what I mean? When you're probably not as enthusiastic to do another commentary track.
Do you know what's a wild commentary track? The Simpsons movie.
Why? Who is it? Is it a cast one or is it a kind of a collection of writers?
It's a crew one. It's a collection of like writers and Matt Groening. But it does something that I don't think I've seen on any other commentary track, where they'll stop the movie.
Okay.
And they like pause the movie and like discuss it a little more. I'm like, you guys really want to be here for like the whole gamut.
Wow.
Like,
that is...
You want to like stop, talk about something, and like I think on Disney Plus there's even like an option to watch the commentary version.
That's amazing. I like one of my favorite all-time commentary tracks is the Armageddon one because it is a collection of separate interviews and Ben Affleck. You can tell has had a few too many beers and he's just kind of shit talking Michael Bay, kind of like he even admits, like, wouldn't it have been easier to train astronauts to drill an asteroid than it would to train drillers to be astronauts? And like, it's like Michael Bay just told him to shut the fuck up. And it's weird. It's a weird one as well that the commentary track like boosts the DVD upper rating because there's more swearing on the commentary track than there is in the film.
I always love that.
Anyway, before we get lost down this avenue, let's talk about the Green Hornet.
So, this is what you want out of your life. This gives you a sense of fulfillment.
Drink?
I spend all night writing about the corruption of this town. And you do nothing.
For today's top story, newspaper mogul James Reed was found dead, leaving his son in charge of his media empire.
Sorry to hear about your father.
Hey, Kato, you knew my dad pretty well, right? Now that he's gone, I'm thinking I haven't done anything good my whole life. I'm not sure what I should do.
Wanna see something cool?
Whoa! You did that? What did you think of my father?
Was a complex man.
Think about this, Kato. We've been completely wasting our potential. This city needs our help. We could be heroes. Here's what will make us different. We will pose as villains to get close to the bad guys. That way, no one will suspect we're really the good guys. I want you to take my hand, and I want you to come with me on this adventure.
I'll go with you, but I don't want to touch you.
Okay, you don't have to take my hand, but will you come with me on this adventure?
Okay.
Yes. What do we call him? The Green Hornet.
I'm Lenore Case. I'm the new secretary.
Perfect.
I want the head of the Green Hornet, and I want it tonight.
You know who you are? You're a human Swiss Army knife. Just when you think there couldn't be any more cool things, a new thing comes out. What's this?
It's a gas gun.
A gas gun? How does it even work?
Okay.
Let's roll, Kato. Stop! Camera got us. Can I shoot one?
One thing I've got to say about that trailer is that it sounds like a film that was made in the early 2000s. Almost sounds like it's got like a POD song on that trailer.
I was going to say late 90s.
Yeah, like it's that kind of like that rock with the slap bass, like bang, wow, wow, pow, 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 pow. It's kind of like sub Red Hot Chili Peppers, but with a bit more like rap rock to it. So yeah, almost.
I mean, arguably, is that not the vibe the film has?
It does.
In general, it doesn't feel like a film that was made in 2011.
Yes, yeah. Before we get into that and kind of the storied production history for this film, can you tell us a brief synopsis of what the Green Hornet is about, Jack?
All right, so you got Britt Reed. He's a kid. Well, he's not a kid. He's probably my age, maybe a bit younger. He's this party animal guy. His dad owns a newspaper, and he's you know, his dad's like, "Oh, you idiot, Britt, and when are you gonna grow up?" And Britt's like, I will grow up one day. And then his dad dies, and Britt decides that it's time to grow up, especially when his coffee isn't made correctly. And you find out that it's made by a guy called Kato, and Kato, not from the Pink Panther movies, and him and Kato decide to join up to fight crime. I mean, like, yeah, and then like Christoph Waltz is angry. Am I far off?
Yeah. I think the only thing you missed out is about Christoph Waltz. He's angry and insecure, which kind of seem to be like his only motivations throughout this whole film.
Which I actually kind of like.
We'll get on to who that could have been in this film, because that is a very lovely, juicy little connection. And
exactly.
Only from watching the special features did I realise how late in the day the actor that could have been the the villain in this walked off the project. And may I don't know, give some reason as to why Christoph Waltz, a lot of people say, is underwritten and kind of doesn't get a lot to do in this film somewhat. So yeah, we talked to, we've got your synopsis, but when did you first see this film, Jack?
So this was back when I was a cub reporter for Screen Geeks. I was sent out. They were an entirely US-based operation, and I was their UK arm. And I managed to wangle myself into a press screening of this. I think this was the first press screening I went to that wasn't film festival based and wasn't a straight to DVD Danny Glover remake of Moby Dick with dragons. I saw this in back in probably January 2011, sitting in Sony's screening room back in Soho Square. It was a trip for me. I saw it with my friend Sabrina, and I remember being a big fan of the movie.
Yeah, so it was positive reactions at the time. How have your kind of feelings for the film, like, have they waned, or have they kind of have they, I don't know, have they firmed like solidly to be a film that you admire, or how do you feel about it now?
I definitely don't think I'm as hot on it as I was when I first watched it. I think it definitely has issues, but I do think there's elements to it that are actually really good, and it comes close to like being an interesting sort of like forgotten movie. But instead, I can kind of understand why it's been forgotten. I don't think it's a bad movie. I think it's a little messy, but I don't think it's a bad movie.
Yeah. We'll get into some. I think to talk about like the messiness of this film is to talk about the kind of the production history of it, right? And this.
I mean, maybe. I think there's elements to it. I think the biggest problem with this film is that Seth Rogen needs to play a prick, and he can't do it. He just doesn't come across as a prick. He's too nice guy. He was recently on Curb Your Enthusiasm, and they were talking about how he is like the everyman who is likable. And that's exactly what I think about when watching this movie. I'm just like, he's completely wrong for this role, and that's where I think a lot of it falls down. In fact, with that, a lot of the film falls on Jay Chow's shoulders, who I think does an amiable job, but I do think that he's not entirely ready to lead like an English language motion picture at this point.
Well, what do you think of like the fact that other people in its kind of storied production history who were going to play the Green Hornet, whether it be George Clooney originally in the early 90s, or moved on to Greg Kinnear, and then like years later, I believe that Jake Gyllenhaal at one point, when the film was in Kevin Smith's hands, he wanted to kind of do a sequel to the TV show where it would have been Britt Reed Jr. That would have been Jake Gyllenhaal's character, and then he would have done a gender flipped like Kato's daughter.
Yeah, they did that as the comic book that they brought out as well, didn't they?
Yeah. So I think that script eventually got turned into that. But would it have worked? Like, have those guys got prick potential in them? Like, would they have maybe brought that element to it as opposed to Seth Rogen? Do you reckon?
I think Kinnear probably does. But I also think it would probably have been a very different script back then.
Yes.
Especially if like the 90s version of it, it's probably going to be very much in the realm of like the Shadow and the Phantom. Kinnear probably could have done it though. Clooney has prickish elements to him, but again, I don't know, maybe he could be a good sort of roguish chum, but then, he goes off and does Batman, and it's absolutely terrible.
Yeah. I guess one that I haven't mentioned is Mark Wahlberg as well, who I think in his real life has been an actual prick. And I'm not sure teaming him up with somebody of East Asian descent is a good idea in a film. Because
Wahlberg can be amazing if used correctly. If put in the right movie with the right director. However, that rarely happens. If this was going to be a Michel Gondry movie, because I believe Michel Gondry was like attached to this in the 90s at one point.
He was the first person attached to it. Yeah, he was the first director. And what I find crazy about this film is a lot of people got pay-to-play contracts to be in this film. So, like, George Clooney would have made money off this film regardless of it ever being made, like the version he was going to be in. Jet Li, I believe, was the same as well when he was kind of attached to play Kato and then kind of left to make The One. Instead, like, yeah, I find the production history, like, Kevin Smith, I think, got to the point and when kind of realised what the budget for the film would be, walked off the project being like, I don't want to mess around with that kind of budget. And I think what happened with Superman Lives and kind of having to deal with the studios and mega asshole producer John Peters kind of really scared him off the prospect of working on a kind of a property film, as it were.
Yeah, I reckon I used to be a massive Kevin Smith fan, and used to be the key term. And I remember being really interested, like, what's he gonna do with this Green Hornet project? Despite the fact that, like, I didn't know who the Green Hornet was.
Yes.
This wasn't a property that I was aware of. I did try for this episode to watch some episodes of the TV show, and I watched half of one. And I was like, "This is too dry. I cannot carry on." Gyllenhaal's an interesting call for it, especially doing it as like the son of Britt Reed. I mean, maybe I think this is an issue, is that especially now that I've watched like one half of an episode of the TV show and this movie, I'm not entirely sure who Britt Reed really is supposed to be. He doesn't. I'm not entirely like. Yeah, the Green Hornet character doesn't really stand out too much.
Well, I think Seth Rogen has said that this film is supposed to act like the origin story for those characters, because in the TV show, and I think like there would have been radio plays back in like the 30s.
There was like a 1940s black and white serial as well, which I watched a bit of.
Yeah, and they're like, but like I think they just kind of, it is just like an adventure of the week show. So like they're kind of, you dropped into it. There is no kind of setting up who the characters are. So you don't really, you just kind of go, this is the dynamic. We have these things that they say every week, whether it's like checking through what all the weapons are, whether they're still intact and stuff like that in the car. But apart from that, it's like there's no like character development as to like how he became the Green Hornet. So I think they had.
He's just like a rich guy. Like it's it feels, especially with the TV series being produced by the same guys who did the Batman series of the 60s, but without any of the charm. It felt like it was just you just need another Batman, which I believe your opening played tribute to.
Maybe. What gave that away? Was it the use of the dynamic duo, or the fact that
it was when you called Kato a butler? I'm like, he's not a butler.
Well, yeah, he makes the coffee. It's a stretch. It's a stretch, but
he's his man, which he isn't, as Kato points out.
Yeah, he's his man. He's not his man. Yeah, this. Whoa, yeah. Shall we get into how this film has aged in some of those aspects, or we'll save that for a bit later? I guess
we can save that.
So yeah, when it came, so this film even this version of the film was kicking around for a while, right, before it got to being made, because the rights, I believe, kind of got acquired in 2007, and then it was kind of in the July of that year, Seth Rogen.
It was like the rise of Rogen that year.
Yes. So, what do you think of what do you think of the kind of the Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg stable of films in general? Anyway, I feel that's a point to touch on, because where this film fits in, though, as well.
So, for those of us who have listened to my Funny People episode, I'm a big Judd Apatow fan, and Rogen is Apatow's man. Yeah. It's not his man. All that joke. Talk about dream of dreams. Seth Rogen and Kevin Smith coming together when I was 18. Oh, what a great. Now that's a dynamic duo I wanted to see. I've not watched the movie since the cinema. Rogen and Goldberg, I think I like a lot of their projects together. I think Superbad is a really strong script and is put together really nicely. I haven't watched this since the cinema, but I'd like to rewatch This Is the End, because I remember that being really fun. I think they work well together. I think they clearly know what works best. And I think Rogen has been very open on the production of this movie being an absolute shit show. In the end,
which is really funny watching the Blu-ray features and stuff like that for this film. Knowing he said that in a Mark Maron interview in 2013, and obviously touches on it in his book as well, right? He kind of talks about some of the troubles with it. It's on the Blu-ray that him and Evan Goldberg are both there, kind of going, "Hey, this is great, we're having fun." But even then, they're like, "Oh yeah, we got 4 months to finish this script. We don't know how it's going to end." So you can kind of see some cracks in the foundations, but for the rest of the time, they're going "Hey, we're having loads of fun." And then there's a brief mention of Evan Goldberg going, "So, one of the biggest problems is we got 3 days until begin shooting, and Nicolas Cage has walked off the project as our villain in this movie."
Yes. Shall we talk about Mr. Cage?
Yeah, let's do it, because so obviously we could briefly talk about the fact that was it Stephen Chow who was going to be Kato originally in this? Stephen
Chow was going to be Kato, and I believe he was going to direct as well.
Yes, yeah.
And it was going to be his English language debut, directorial debut, which has never happened since this movie. I think Stephen Chow would have been interesting, but I I don't think necessarily that would have made this movie work. I love Stephen Chow's movies.
Yes. Yeah.
But comedy direction can be very tricky at the best part. Even more so when you're directing something that is not in your native language.
Yeah, that is something like can be really tricky, right? Some of like the greatest like Asian cinema directors. Well, to bring it to Cage, there's the Sion Sono film Prisoners of the Ghostland, which Sion Sono, for anyone who's seen his films, made some absolute like masterpieces, whether it's Love Exposure or Why Don't You Play in Hell. But something just went wrong when it kind of when that mixture of like making it English language. I guess certain things are lost in translation. When American money starts getting involved, it starts like visions start getting diluted and stuff like that. And I don't know, yeah.
Obviously, there are some great examples. Like, obviously, this is directed by Michel Gondry, this film, who is obviously not an English native, and like Snowpiercer by Bong Joon-ho is a fantastic movie, and Stoker by Park Chan-wook is incredible. A film that doesn't get talked about enough.
Even Face Off with
John Woo,
John Woo, or Broken Arrow before that. Yeah.
But I do think when it is comedy, and especially having seen like Shaolin Soccer and Kung Fu Hustle and CJ7, I think those films are very funny, but they're not the type of comedy that is going to appeal to like a mainstream American audience. Actually, I think CJ7 is kind of the biggest example of that, where he's trying to kind of do something Spielberg-y, but it doesn't really work. And yeah, I assume it is probably a big hit in China, and people will get on board with that. For me, it was a sort of like, oh, it's nice to see a new Stephen Chow.
So yeah, with Stephen Chow off the project, and I'm not really too sure when the crossover was of who was involved.
Just quickly on Chow.
Yes.
Do you know what his pitch to Rogan was?
No.
Oh yeah. He wanted at one point to have Kato install a chip in Britt Reed's head, and he could control him like a video game.
Amazing.
And and I remember Rogan just being like, that's not really like the jokes we wanted to. But yeah, that's the only thing I really know. Like, that was like one of Chow's things that like I want to do that. And from Rogan's book, you kind of get the sense that there was just a lot of like sort of pushback between the two of them, and Chow wouldn't sign off on what they wanted to do.
Well, I think there was kind of pushback from different factions on this, right? It was kind of,
it was never going to work.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting when you think of like a Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg film. Is this from my memory is their only kind of PG-13 film that they've made, and you can kind of feel it in the.
I don't think they wanted it to be PG.
That's what you feel in it. Like at every point, there's stuff within it. Whether it's like there's a clear 80-yard line when they first like go on their escapades and they run a cop off the road. You kind of get the cop like when his car is clearly he's dead. You get an 80-yard line. He's like, damn it. Where it's like, we need to let the PG-13 audience know that this guy is still alive. And even like some of the kills in this, it's like
there's a lot of kills in this, a surprising amount.
Yeah, and like even when you get to their kind of like, this got like when there's a reveal of like a villain at the end, and it's like this guy's gonna get away with it. Their kind of way of dealing with it is like, we'll just kill him. Like we're not gonna like get his comeuppance elsewhere. It's like, we will just get this half a car we've got and drive him out of a fucking window to the ground.
Which doesn't like play completely outside of Rogan and Goldberg's sort of wheelhouse, because think of like The Interview, and like the ending of that is just like, well, let's just kill Kim Jong-un.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying like, what is like, you can feel that they were going for something a bit more hard-edged, like an art, like what could have been really like the first kind of big budget, like R-rated comic book film in a way, or like superhero movie. It would have definitely have bucked a trend at the time that it came out, at least. Yeah, and
I guess people didn't want to buck the trend at that point.
Yeah, true.
Because so this was supposed to come out in 2010. It's pushed back to 2011. And so 2010, we're in the height of Iron Man popularity, and that's what I imagine the studio wants. Nobody's out there looking for a Deadpool at this point.
Yeah, and what is interesting as well is like the choice for Michel Gondry to direct this as well, is the fact that like Seth Rogen has admitted his thoughts on Michel Gondry before working with him. One, nobody thought he wanted to make this film. They're like, why does Michel Gondry want to make a big budget mainstream movie? And like he said himself, is like, well, if I'm going to make the Green Hornet, a project that was going to be my first like American movie anyway, I want to make it a bit like real big budget. And he provided them with like basically like a fight sequence like demo, just to show them like, this thing that you think I can't do. Obviously I'm the guy who's known for Be Kind Rewind or Science of Sleep,
Eternal Sunshine,
all this kind of weird stuff at this point, or Human Nature. Like I'm not gonna be the guy you would first think who would be able to like pull off these action sequences or fight.
I feel like I should say at this point that I do think Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is probably one of the best made movies I've ever seen.
Perfect.
So I just want to like say that like when I think of when this movie was coming out and I heard Michel Gondry was attached, I was like, well, this is going to be the greatest movie ever made.
So before we talk about Michel Gondry, obviously we teased that we were going to talk about Nicolas Cage.
Yes.
So yeah, obviously he left this project, as I alluded to, 3 days before it went into production. And part of the reason for that could have been the fact of how he wanted to play the character. And Seth Rogen recounts this in his great book, Yearbook. What were those choices that Nick Cage had for the character of Benjamin Chodonosky?
He wanted to be Jamaican.
Of course he wanted to be Jamaican.
Obviously. I'm just looking at what point this would be in around Cage's career, because I think he walks off in like 2008 or like 2009. So what's he doing?
So that would have been
Is he just got off like filming with Werner Herzog?
It would have been around that time, yeah. It would have been around it would have been just like, my thinking is it would have been just before he realised that like his money had disappeared, that he'd been like swindled by his accountant. Like it would have been just before that. Like, yeah.
I'm curious if he walks off of this and walks onto the Kick-Ass set.
Oh, that is, yeah. That feels like that would have been a choice of being like, I walked away from what would have been an interesting comic book film. And I can't help but think that, I don't know, Christoph Waltz is obviously a great actor, but I'm not sure if he is the right fit for this film in a way.
It's interesting watching this the other day. I was watching it, and his performance reminded me very much of a few years later, Peter Stormare does the performance in 22 Jump Street, where his character is just very much like villains were so much better in the 90s.
Uh-huh.
You know, in the 90s you could, and it was very reminiscent of that. And I think Stromae has sort of a better lid on that performance than Waltz does here. I quite like Waltz in this. Like, I think, like, I quite like that he's just so befuddled that things just can't be straightforward. And he's just like a man trying to adapt to a new era. And I quite like his sort of way of playing that.
Mm-hmm.
I actually do think his scene at the top with him and James Franco popping up in this film in a little cameo is a strong scene and a fun one at that. Like those two playing off each other. Obviously, you know, Franco is disgraced and shouldn't be talked about. But I do think he's quite fun to hear in that he seems to be playing like a straight-laced version of his alien character from Spring Breakers.
Yes. Yeah. What is it?
The bit where he's like, look at all this stuff I've got. I was like, he's just doing, look at my shit. Look at my shit. I got Scarface on repeat. Which, of course, leads back to Nick Cage wanting to play this role. And in the book, Seth Rogen's book, apparently Nick Cage contacts Seth Rogen after the movie comes out and after Spring Breakers has come out, and Cage basically accuses Rogen of giving Franco the idea to play this sort of Jamaican character, which he really isn't in Spring Breakers.
No, the genesis of the Spring Breakers character, I think, goes back to the rapper Riff Raff, right? That kind
yes,
of,
yeah,
the Florida rapper, yeah, as opposed to a guy wanting to speak in patois and have cornrows. Yeah, it's. I think if Cage had just dialed into a villainous role as opposed to just wanting to do a batshit, like, I'm gonna do this in a Jamaican accent, and I know that Cage has said some of his reasoning for walking off is he wanted to explore more the reasons why this villain was the way he was, as opposed to just being, I am a bad guy and that is it. And I know that Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, when it came to getting Christoph Waltz, they had to revert back to an earlier draft of the script where they're like, oh, we kind of, because they mention in the in the features that when Brad Pitt was involved with the film, so I guess he would have been the villain at one point. They're like, oh, in the Brad Pitt script, it's all about this thing of a self-doubting villain. So they kind of pull that back, and then they weren't sure if they were going to do the Bludnovsky, like, kind of, do you know what I mean, transition throughout the film, and had to make the decision really quickly because one of the first shots they were going to film with Christoph Waltz was inside the hibachi bar when he's walking across that balcony in the red suit. And it's like, we need to make this decision really quick, whether we're going to go with this kind of plot line for the character or if we're going to go with something else, which again really compounds on the fact that there was like a lot of kind of issues with this, and they kind of, like, I don't know, got through it by the skin of their teeth in a weird way.
It's a wild, wild movie the more I think about it. Because at the end of the day, I can't really think of, like, too much, like, I don't think the story is that, I think the story is fun enough.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it really has an arc. Like, nothing really changes from the beginning to the end of this movie. Like, Britt and Kato are kind of the same people from the beginning to the end.
Yep.
Poor Cameron Diaz.
Oh, gets sidelined massively, right?
I mean, I'll say this. Love an older woman love interest. She's 10 years older than Rogen. And she, like, you know, she holds her and she's great. I love Cameron Diaz. Lights up the screen every time she's on.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, she has nothing to do in this movie. It feels like she's set up to be in the sequel. Which, in the TV series, her character is like one of the people who knows that Britt is the Green Hornet.
What I think as well is like what makes it even worse is Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg have like gone on record to say that they had problems with the original series, that like that character was just a bit of eye candy, and they wanted
I mean that's not untrue as well.
Yeah, they wanted to right the wrong, but like it's not like they thought they were making her the mastermind of the operation, but the way the film plays out is she is kind of like manipulated by them to get them information.
That doesn't come into like the last like 10 minutes of the film.
Yes.
That whole mastermind thing. Like obviously, like she's there researching the Green Hornet, but she doesn't really have anything to do. It's a shame. It's a waste of unfortunately we didn't get many Cameron Diaz performances after this before she retired. And it's a shame that this is one of the final ones. Like I think it's like this, Sex Tape and Annie and The Counselor. Obviously, do you think she took the idea to be Jamaican from this to be in The Counselor? Because they had to like redub her all over for The Counselor because she did it all in a Jamaican accent.
Maybe she was knocking about with Cage, and he was like, hey, he put the seed. He's put the seed in a lot of we get two films out of two Jamaican performances out of this film, and they're all thanks to Nicolas Cage. I hadn't thought about
exactly.
That's perfect.
It's so it is a shame, and the film is fun to go along with. I think the film is it ends up being saved because it does have some real interesting filmmaking going on from Michel Gondry. The split screen sequence is phenomenal. It's like, so like technically it's like insane. The only thing about it is I wish there was something a bit more interesting going on in it.
Yeah.
It looks phenomenal, and you're like, how do they do this? And you're like, oh, this is so good. And then you think, I'm marveling on how they did this. I'm not marveling on like what's going on screen. Like, I do like Kato Vision. I think Kato Vision is like really fun, and like him running across that car. Where the car goes back. I think like I wish there was more of that throughout the movie.
Yeah,
because that stuff is really cool and really fun to watch. And Kato's a really fun, like Jay Chow's a really fun, like, energetic presence to have in those fight scenes. And he's small and he's like fast and he's good. And you're like, oh yeah. And like even when they have like Britt Reed going into the Kato Vision at the end, it's a fun sort of payoff to that. Where he does it. And there's a fun idea in that you have a superhero duo where one is incredibly skilled and one is really wealthy but shit. And that idea is really fun, and they do play with that for a while. But then it just goes into the sort of usual split between the two, having a fight, come back together. Though I will say, the fight between the Hornet and Kato is one of the highlights of the movie.
Yeah, I love that.
It looks great.
And what I love about that as well is Michel Gondry was really open to like just happy accidents happening. So like when
I can imagine
when the TV kind of comes off the wall, he was like, the TV looks really cool. I like the kind of, because it's fucked, like what's happened to the TV. He's like, right, we need to set up a shot right now to incorporate that. And then we get that moment where Kato's like pushing his face against the TV, like, you like that? You like that? You like that? And it's kind of like, and you talking about the Kato Vision stuff, they reminded me somewhat of quick time events in video games. Like when you kind of have that moment, it's like, press X now, press like square now. And it's kind of like really cool because that kind of almost like predates that being like a massive thing. I guess it's kind of, I don't know. I might be wrong on that. There's probably video game people going, you're wrong on that. But like I remember it in games kind of coming out afterwards a lot more, whether it's the reboot of the Tomb Raider franchise.
I like properly remember it in like Red Dead Redemption. That's the kind of stuff I remember.
Yeah. And what like, and
I remember this as well. It popped in 3D. it looked great in 3D, that kind of stuff. And my big regret on not watching this in 3D. When you tweeted the poster the other day and it's like the Green Hornet in 3D, I was like, oh man, this would have looked fantastic.
Well, the producers have said that's like the 3D aspect of it is one of the reasons it never got a sequel, is like the fact that they shot the film in LA that has no tax breaks for filmmaking, and the fact that they spent another $10 million to kind of retroactively fit it to 3D. Because I guess this was when 3D was really kicking back in, right? It's kind of every film.
So this is, it's 2011. So the 2009, you've got Avatar, which is like the main 3D event. And then 2010, you've got both retrofitted Clash of the Titans and Alice in Wonderland that end up doing like surprisingly well, even though everybody says the 3D is awful. And then you got my baby, Jackass 3D. Which is probably the best use of 3D in a movie.
Definitely. Yeah. A series that I often toy with covering on the podcast, where it's
who's the connection?
Spike Jonze, who was at one point married
of course.
to Sofia Coppola, and obviously without that connection, I guess we wouldn't have got Chris Pontius in Somewhere from 2010 as well. So yeah. So yeah, there's connections everywhere, and I do love the Jackass films.
I probably am related to the
by hook or by...
That's why they named it Jack.
So what are some of your favourite scenes in this film? Obviously you've touched upon the Kato vision. Are there kind of other scenes in this that you particularly enjoy, Jack?
I mean, as I say, the fight scene I think is... Oh, am I muted? As I say, the fight scene is a real joy. It's got lots of stuff going on there that I really think is fun. I think joke-wise, the invention of the gas gun is funny. The joke of him being asleep for 11 days is good. And like watching the show, I didn't really like the gas gun is like the Green Hornet's main weapon, so it's fun to sort of play with that. Unfortunately, like that's the thing, because this character isn't so well known, I think jokes like that almost don't work as well. Because you're just like, oh well, he's got a gas gun, sure, and then you don't realize like, oh wait, the gas gun is the main thing.
Well, yeah, and it's the fact of like when he's explaining why he's got it, and he's skirting around the fact where it's like, you're just shit. You need something as your kind of crutch, because I'm the one who's kind of offing all these villains, and you kind of like just come in at a kick once they're down on the floor, or kind of.
I like that relationship between the two of them.
Yes,
I do think. Sorry to just jump around on what.
No, do it.
You remind me, like, one of my favorite lines in the movie is Jay Chow watching the TV report on the time they cut the head off the statue at the beginning of the movie, and Jay Chow just being, "Where am I?" And just go, "Must be too fast for TV." I like that little like self-defensive, like, yeah, I'm good. I'm too fast with the cameras. Like I think the problem with this, because I do think Jay Chow is good in this. Yes. I think he is good in it.
Really good.
But I think Rogen's best work is when he is playing off someone else. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he quite gets the ability to do that with Jay Chow, be that for the language barrier or be that just because the two don't have bad chemistry, but I can't imagine they're riffing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Rogen really shines, at least like in this era of his career.
I think it draws back to that thing you said as well, that Rogen's not that believable as like an arsehole. And like I guess there's a lot of like American comedians who are, and I think the thing that Seth Rogen has got is he's somewhat more relatable as like that British sense of humor where it's like self-deprecating, or like you look at like Superbad, like those characters are like the butt of the joke a lot of the time, Do you know what I mean? Like,
Completely.
and throughout their career, do you know what I mean? Like, Knocked Up, it's like they are like, they're not cool guys. They are like,
No.
we're in on the
They're
joke that
losers.
they're losers. And it's like, I don't know, if you kind of had like a more like, I don't know, even like a John Hamm fronting, do you know what I mean? Somebody who's got comedy chops, but but is also got that like edge to be a bit of a prick. Like,
Completely. Like, you know what? Like, even Ryan Reynolds, who would go on to do a Green Prefix superhero this year as well. But, you know, he probably would have had a bit of fun with this sort of role. Because he's very easily believable as a prick, as someone, you know, who watched every episode of Two Guys, a Girl, on a Pizza Place. I'm just looking at Rogen's career up until now, and yeah, you know, he is just like, I mean, this is really his big follow-up to Funny People. And Funny People, he's such like not a prick. He's so, like, he kind of does some priggish stuff, but he's such like a floundering fish throughout the whole thing. Though then again, that same year he has Observe and Report, where he is awful.
Yeah, that's a film that I went to a test screening of Observe.
Oh
and
wow,
Report.
They tested that?
Yeah. I went to, and weirdly they did it at like, I went to like a Cineworld in Crawley and had to like, had to fill out a form afterwards. And I've never seen the film since, and I probably should, just to see if like there were like cuts made to the film or like,
I like that movie.
I do. It's weird. I think it was a real like outlier to what he had done before in a way, because it felt meaner, at least in the version I saw.
Completely. I think people like describe it as like his Cable Guy.
Yes. Yeah. Like this kind of weird, disgruntled, like, wasn't there like a lot of fart? No, there's a lot of farting in that movie. And I remember there was a shot of full male nudity. Like there was the flat. Like,
there is a full male nudity scene.
Yeah. There's a flasher who's kind of on the loose, and that's the kind of antagonist.
It's wild that this was like a wide release movie. I'm shocked it didn't get an F cinema score. Like, I like it though. Like it's but yeah, like he's in a bit of a weird place, and yeah, so something about it that works in Observe and Report, and maybe that's just the way that film is made. Because I think there's a weird balance with Britt Reed in that he is playing this sort of prick, but he still wants you to like him.
Yes.
Where the Ronnie Bernhardt character in Observe and Report does not care. Or like, it is very much a takeoff on Travis Bickle. But like, yeah, there's nothing, and as I said, like, it doesn't really have it doesn't go from him being a prick to someone we like. It just kind of like flounders between the two throughout the whole movie. I'm trying to think of other scenes that I did love in this movie, and I mean, they're mostly, it's mostly the Kato side. It is like when Britt and Kato are friends, I kind of like that stuff. I like Kato building the cars. I think the Black Beauty is really cool. I have a picture of me in the Black Beauty somewhere.
Amazing. Is that from that press screening, or is it?
No, that was from the 2010 Comic-Con, where I saw footage from this film. I just remembered that. They played some footage at a panel. It was really exciting. Very early. Because, yeah, I think this film was, like, done for a while by the time they released it.
Yeah, wasn't it pushed? It was basically pushed back because they wanted to retroactively put it in 3D.
Yeah.
And
when was it? It was supposed to be out on June 25th, 2010. Replaced by Grown Ups.
Yes, a nice little Happy Maddison connection. Yes, I love it.
And then they moved the Green Hornet to July 9th. Then to December 22nd, and then pushing it to January 14th to secure. It was the Morbius of its day.
So I guess,
I
guess it is that thing as well that had the studio lost faith in the film as well? Because like up until recently, January has really been like a dead zone for films, hasn't it? It's kind of been like
I mean, it still is a bit.
yeah, it's like but yeah, it's famously like the dumping ground of those. Like in the UK, we somewhat get like the hangover.
We get the Oscar movies.
Yeah, we get the hangover of the Oscar movies, like with the delayed releases with the US. But like, I think when it's like simultaneous distribution, if a film is getting released in January, it's kind of, we've got no faith in this to perform well.
The only films I think like that studios have confidence for in January is horrors.
Yes, as we've seen with Scream 5, right, this year.
Yeah, Scream 5, and like, you know, Cloverfield was a January release back in the day, and I think like they'll put stuff like that. But for the most part, it seems like quite a dumping ground, and this film's definitely dumped. Like, where does it open? Does it open at number 1?
Oh, that is something I don't have.
I have it. I have it. It does open at number 1. Petros, can you guess one of the top 5 in the box office?
January.
It opens at number 1 for 33 million.
Number 2 is, come on, tell me, Jack.
It's a comedy, starring one of the Happy Maddison gang, but not a Happy Maddison film. I won't make you guess all of these. Well, this is a good one.
Yeah, this is a good podcasting. Me just guessing.
It's The Dilemma.
Oh boy.
Also opening that week, so yeah, a real dumping ground. And then you've just got 3 Oscar leftovers. You've got True Grit, The King's Speech, and Black Swan. A real weird time to release this movie. I mean, 33 million's not a bad opening weekend for like an action comedy, but this is an expensive action comedy.
Yeah, so we haven't touched on the budget of this film. So obviously, the budget is like said to be between 110 and 120 million dollars. Only, well, I say only, the box office like return was 227.8 million, which I guess once you factor in marketing and stuff like that, isn't really the hit that they would have wanted, right?
Yeah, that's 227.8 million worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this film didn't make money. This film didn't. I doubt this film even broke even. Like 98 million in the US. The fact that this film couldn't even get to 100 million in the US, which is where, like, you know, like, people talk about the international market, but most of your money is still meant to come from like the US box office. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's real low.
Yeah, and it dropped 47% in its second week to $17.7 million. Yeah. So yeah, and it's kind of, I don't know, it kind of drops each week like a considerable amount as well. It's sad, like, because I don't know. It's interesting. I think this film is interesting, as there's always that thing of like what it could have been, whether it's all of those iterations that could have been throughout the 90s and 2000s. But there's also like what this film could have been if the studio had their kind of finger on the button a bit more, and were like kind of,
when will that happen?
Kind of cared a bit more, and it's I guess it's a real it was a real learning curve in somewhat for Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, right? Because it was their kind of, to that point, would have been their biggest budget that they would have worked with. I guess it would have taught them a lesson of like, we can't really do this, or I guess because this isn't great. Like, yeah, is it Grey Point, their production company?
I think so, yeah, because this is original film, right?
Yeah, original.
Which is like the Neil Moritz Fast and Furious guy.
Yeah, and a Sony production. I guess like after this is when they start to produce a lot more and it's kind of they get like a much more of a say in what kind of is on screen and what isn't, and you can that again. I draw back.
Well, here's a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Do Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg essentially kill the studio comedy with The Interview?
Somewhat, yes. It's this film I haven't seen, but like trying
And
to.
I don't even think it's to do with the film itself. It's to do with the reaction around the film and the worry that studios might have. Like, now, well, we could make this comedy, but it might piss some people off, and we might get hacked, and we might not be able to release a movie.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like studio comedies that have happened since, and even like
there have definitely been some, but I do think like the Interview had such an impact.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's mad to think of like how crazy that was when that movie was coming out, and all the hacking and all like Obama's talking about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
and it's a movie I quite like, to be honest. I remember enjoying it. I thought it was pretty funny and pretty like well done for what it was. But yeah, it's kind of like I do feel like, unfortunately, they ended up kind of killing sort of like high concept comedies like that.
Yeah, and I guess now we have to get our like comedy fix. It's either, I don't know, like the stuff you'll get, and it, I guess, high concept like comedies. Seth Rogen is still trying to do them, whether it's like an American Pickle, but even that was kind of like shut out onto streaming both here and in the US.
Yeah.
And then like
Sausage Party is kind of that.
Yeah,
but
again, a film that set up a sequel that never delivered, just like the Green Hornet. Kind of like the way the final act of this plays out is like they will return.
The ending of the Green Hornet really calls for a sequel, and you're like him like high-fiving Cameron Diaz in the car after they pull off a stunt that makes no sense.
Oh yes, let's talk about that. Yeah, so obviously to like wash their hands of. So at this point as well, so Kato manages to kill Chodowski by stabbing him in both eyes with stakes, which again I thought like there's definitely
wild.
There's a harder cut of this film, and then we haven't even talked about the fact that David Harbour, I guess a lot of people would know as being
Hellboy himself,
or Officer Hopper in Stranger Things himself, or Lily Allen's husband, as some people may know him as being now.
No, not just Hellboy.
Hellboy.
Yeah, I'm sure people remember him as the definitive Hellboy.
Yeah. Ron who? Yeah. But like with his like, well, yeah. What did you think of David Harbour in this film?
I mean, what's there to think? Like it could have been anyone.
Yeah. It felt like they couldn't get Aaron Eckhart, or like, do you know what I mean? Like, oh shit, Aaron Eckhart kind of did a similar thing in The Dark Knight, so we can't get Aaron Eckhart involved.
Like, David Harbour didn't have much of a career at this point. Like, what he had like some very small roles in like Quantum of Solace and State of Play. Like, he's not. Was he on a show? Maybe. No, doesn't look like it. He's very much an up and comer, and he's not got much to do here. But I tell you, before we get on to the crazy ending, just while we're talking about the actors, you know who brings it? Tom Wilkinson.
Tom Wilkinson, yeah. He just comes in with like being like real arsehole dad, and I think that's what's interesting about this film.
Plays Kevin Spacey in this, I believe.
Well, he's got
a Spacey vibe to it.
He's got a real like
without the pedophilia.
He's got a real 90s dad energy to him as well, of like just being like, "Fuck you, kid." Like, and he is the kind of antithesis of a lot of kind of superhero dads as well, where it's like normally like they're really beat up about their dad's death, whereas like Britt Reed is more upset about the fact that his coffee isn't made the same way that it used to be than he is about his like the death of his dad. If anything, he's like, fuck you. You
I do wish
you ripped the head off my action figure, Dad.
I wish there was more played of that, because that's the kind of interesting stuff in the film. It's the interesting stuff in every fucking superhero movie, but it is this fathers and sons sort of thing. And yeah, they play with that, but they don't get into it enough. Actually, you've reminded me of the best part of David Harbour's performance is when Britt is putting together everything that's happened, like that Harbour has killed his dad and all that kind of stuff. And it cuts back to you get some fun voiceover there from Tom Wilkinson, and it cuts back to Harbour just being like, judging off the blank expression of your face for the past few minutes, you're struggling to put this together.
Yeah,
I was like, oh well, that's a fun little way to play that.
I love that.
Feels like it could have been played better.
I love that sequence in Kato Vision that he has, and especially once figuring out that like a lot of it was done practically, like the kind of like when it has like the outlines of the dead bodies and like the tree on fire and stuff like that. It is kind of like Michel Gondry going back to his kind of DIY weird like music video like aesthetics for this very short sequence, and it's
we give Gondry a lot of credit. Should say our boy John Schwartzman, middleman himself. This film looks great.
Yeah, it does. But like, I think the fact of John Schwartzman and like when you're looking through his career and his credits, he very much feels like a journeyman cinematographer. Do you know what I mean? He's not kind of. I don't think he'll ever be held up in the same regard as like a Roger Deakins, where it's like, I don't know, people aren't gonna watch a film solely based on the name of John Schwartzman unless you're me, basically doing this podcast.
Probably not, but I will say, like, I think this film, in an era where, I don't know, I there's this director out there at the moment who's complaining that, like, Marvel movies are, like, copies of each other, and that, like, you can take the scenes in No Time to Die and match them up with the car crash scenes in Dune. Like,
Francis Ford Coppola.
Yes, Francis Ford Coppola. There's a sheen about the Green Hornet that is almost reminiscent of like the sheen that's in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies. Like, this movie looks nice, and I appreciate that. Yeah. And it helps up the fun of the movie, I would say. But we should go back to the ending that we were going to discuss.
Yeah, so like how much of the ending do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about like the kind
I just want to talk about the stupidity of So Rogan's been shot. He's been shot in the chest, and they take him back to Cameron Diaz's house. They reveal to her that he's the Green Hornet. She suddenly finds out she's the mastermind. Girl bosses it. She tries to take out the bullet because they can't take him to a hospital because then they'll know he's the Green Hornet. She can't take it out, and so they manufacture a. Oh, are you frozen? Are you still there? Hello. I'll just keep talking until we can figure this out. Well, they manufacture a fake shooting. Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Let
me just go back a little bit. They manufacture a fake shooting to get Rogan shot so he can go to hospital. Of course, during this scene, Edward James almost keeps patting him on the bullet, and then they finally get him shot, and he is taken to hospital. And I'm just like, how long is that bullet inside of Rogan?
Yeah, and they have the opportunity as well, right, to like clear the Green Hornet's name in all of this as well. And instead of doing that, they just make the Green Hornet even more of a villain. Like they like kind of, because they get Kato to come and be like, this shot comes courtesy of the Green Hornet, as opposed to being like, they could have figured out a way to clear his name in doing all of this.
It was a really strange moment that I guess is setting up a sequel
that we're never going to get. So as we start to wrap things up, Jack, is there anything that we've missed in this film that you feel like we should talk about? Any gems, any things that you didn't particularly like?
Just a quick... I don't think there's anything I don't particularly like in this movie. I don't think anything in it like really rubs me the wrong way enough to dislike this movie. I think one thing we haven't talked about that I think is really cool, the Black Beauty is a cool car.
Yes. Yeah. There was, 29 made and 3 survived, so you got to sit in one of the... Or at least...
Oh, I didn't sit in it. I just stood near it.
You got to stand near one of the 3 remaining Black Beauties, which is quite cool.
I think the music stings are fun. The score is kind of old-fashioned in a way. That's nice. And who doesn't like a bit of Gangster's Paradise?
Yeah, so it's a good like James Newton Howard score as well, right? It's a decent slice. Yeah.
It's a misfire, but it's a good misfire. It's not interesting enough to be like a forgotten classic, but it's not bad enough to be like, well, screw this movie.
I think it kind of very much falls in like, I don't know, but it is somewhat of a curio in a way. And I think like the more you kind of like look into the film, the more you kind of get disappointed of what it could have been in a way. Like, or kind of like watching the film and knowing the people involved, whether it is like, Seth Rogen and kind of, so just watching the film and going, there is a harder version of this film. Or there is like a version of this where like certain characters are a bit more fleshed out, like the Cameron Diaz character. But it's like, don't know if any of that is on cutting room floor. Don't think it is. I think like I don't think it is. They just had a few bum. They had a few bum like deals on their hand. Do you know what I mean? Whether it's the Stephen Chow walking off or if it's Nicolas Cage walking off, kind of rattled people's confidence a bit, and they kind of didn't get to deliver the film that they could have done.
Yeah, and I think there's the movie that Rogen and Goldberg want to make. I think there's the movie that Gondry wants to make, and there's the movie that the studio wants to make. And elements of all those things are in this movie. And I think the best elements of that are the Gondry things.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's just, it doesn't really add up to much, which is a shame, because there are some interesting parts, but they don't all come together. And yeah.
I think that perfectly sums it up. So one thing I like to do on this podcast when looking at films is trying to see if there's any Coppola connections. So is there people who worked on this film or in this film who've worked with the Coppolas elsewhere? Did you manage to find any, Jack?
I haven't found anything. I will also say I've been packing for a trip this week and haven't looked hard enough. We also arranged to do this episode like 2 days ago.
No worries. Well, I will rattle a few and we can pick out any that interest you in any way. So Michel Gondry directed 2001's Human Nature, which starred Patricia Arquette, who was married to Nicolas Cage at the time. Seth Rogen is, of course, in Funny People with Jason Schwartzman. Christoph Waltz is in The French Dispatch and Big Eyes with Jason Schwartzman. Cameron Diaz is in Shrek Forever After, which Matt Shire, Talia Shire's son from her first marriage, did punch up on the script for, and is in Slackers with Jason Schwartzman, and is, of course, in Spike Jonze's Being John Malkovich, which he released in 1999 whilst he is still married to Sofia Coppola. Tom Wilkinson is in The Grand Budapest Hotel, which again has a cameo from Jason Schwartzman. And stunt coordinator Vic Armstrong directed Left Behind and was the stunt coordinator on The Amazing Spider-Man and Never Say Never Again, which Jack Schwartzman, both Jason and John's dad, was a producer on. And Georgina Armstrong was in Left Behind and did stunts on The Amazing Spider-Man. James Armstrong was the stunt coordinator on The Amazing Spider-Man and the assistant stunt coordinator on the Nicolas Cage 2011 film Season of the Witch.
Must be the season of the witch.
Yeah. So yeah, the Armstrong family, who are kind of this fascinating. So Vic Armstrong would have done stunts on like Superman, like the Richard Donner
Indiana
film.
Jones, right?
Indiana Jones, yeah. He's got this kind of amazing career, like worked with everyone. And they're really fascinating. So James, so Vic Armstrong's brother, who I believe is Andy Armstrong, did like one of the car flips in this film as like one of the first stunts to show the other stunt people, like, I might be old, can still do it, and this is kind of what we expect of you.
You've described the Armstrongs to me now, and I don't know why, but I can only picture them as the Mandelbaum family from Seinfeld.
Yeah,
So just picture them all driving around going, Armstrong.
Yeah, Vic Armstrong very much wears a number one dad T-shirt.
Oh, you know it.
on every set. Yeah, that is. Yes. If there's anything I love more than talking about the Coppola family, it's talking about Seinfeld. So, thank you.
Mandelbaum. That's a great, weird characters to bring up.
Armstrong. Yes, that's fantastic. So let's get to
anytime like someone's like, I can do this stunt, like someone comes on like, you think you can do this stunt? I'm like just
I love, I think there's like, this film has got like 5
the stunt mafia.
Yeah, 5 Armstrongs worked on this film. And like what is kind of like quite cool about it is they went through the script with Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg and kind of like said to them everything they could do practically, and they just took out anything that would be too heavy CGI and went like,
nice.
Let's not do that. And like even like the car going up the elevator, they were like, we'll just
thinking about that.
We'll just build a rig. We'll just build a rig and like
it's mad, that moment.
Yeah.
I want more stuff like that in this movie.
Yeah, more weird stuff. Yeah.
Like that stuff is really cool and like stands out.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah, I do wonder if like if Rogen is a a weight around this movie's neck in a sad way.
I think he is miscast in a way, in that like he just.
But I wonder even just in like the script sense as well, if he just doesn't have enough to bring those sort of weirder elements that we've enjoyed, enough of them.
And like, I don't think that they had a reverence for the show. Not that you possibly could, but like, like sometimes people who like really know the material inside and out can really pull something out of the bag that kind of like pays homage to it, but introduces a whole new audience to what it is and kind of just taps into the vein of what makes that thing interesting. Whether, I don't know, like whether it is kind of, I'm trying to think of like adaptations that like manage to capture stuff really well. I don't know. My mind has gone blank. If you can't hear from my voice, people are listening. I've been quite ill this week, so
Me too.
So my mind is kind of all a bit of in a haze and a bit of a fog.
Hellboy.
Yeah. Hellboy. Yeah.
David Harbour's
Exactly,
Hellboy.
Is it Neil Marshall's Hellboy? Neil Marshall's Hellboy, the director of Dog Soldiers and The Descent. Yeah,
Dog Soldiers.
He nailed it. He nailed it with Hellboy.
He nailed the Hellboy aesthetic. Definitely, he's the only one who did.
Guillermo who? Yeah. Who's that guy? Right. So let's score this film, and the way we do that on this podcast is asking my guests what would be the perfect wine pairing for this film? What wine are we going for, Jack?
So I haven't picked a specific wine.
That's fine.
I've made up a wine. And because this is the Green Hornet, and there's a sort of early joke about him being called the Green Bee, and I was like, oh well, bees make honey. What's a nice honey wine? And I thought mead, a nice mead, and then maybe like a sort of chili infused mead to give it that extra hornet sting.
Nice, I like that.
Maybe diet green. And that's your Green Hornet wine.
Yeah, like an absinthe wine, an absinthe honey wine. Yeah, maybe like. Do you reckon Nicolas Cage walks off this project as well when he read about the bee, and he's like, I don't know. It would have been lovely for Nicolas Cage to be in this, where it's like he's in cahoots with a guy who used like the component that is in a bee sting that could kill someone to kill them. And obviously Nicolas Cage famously in The Wicker Man had such an aversion to bees and knows that pain. So he could have really, I don't know, he could have really empathized with Tom Wilkinson's character in that way. That's a perfect wine pairing for this film. I like that you've gone off the grid and you've made your own wine. Hopefully,
yeah, I'm a creative guy.
So, is that a bottom shelf, middle shelf, or top shelf wine? AKA, is this film any good?
I'm going to give it a middle shelf.
Perfect. We're not turning over the page to the expensive stuff. We're not getting on our tiptoes to the top shelf. We're just
no. But it's an acquired taste.
Yeah.
That like if you like it, you'll pay that middle shelf price. But if you don't like it, you just leave it alone.
Yeah, you go for,
which I think is what has happened to this movie.
You go for something a bit more, I don't know, not accessible, but you go something for a bit more that's tried and tested. Do you know what I mean? You're going for the bestseller.
You get your Deadpool wine.
Yeah, you get your Iron Man wine. Yeah,
it's a wine that knows it's a wine.
It's a wine that knows it's a wine, and it's like the flavors. Yeah, the flavors. I know all about the flavors. Oh, the flavor's going to be like this, but now I'm going to change it, and the flavors are going to be like this. And hey, look, that's my dick in the wine. Hey, I'm Deadpool.
Hey, my dick crushed these grapes.
And I'm gonna every bottle has a picture of Hugh Jackman inside of the label on the inside. So once you drink the bottle, you see a picture of Hugh Jackman because we're witty and we're edgy. I like that. Yeah, that's fuck your Deadpool wine. So
one of my notes is that this movie is more fun than Deadpool.
Yeah. I think I haven't buried the lead on this, but this was my first time watching this film for this podcast.
I'm sorry, I feel like I've completely railroaded you and didn't give you a chance to talk more about what you wanted to say about this movie.
No, that's fine. I like to sometimes take a back seat, especially as you can hear, my voice has got progressively more husky throughout this. So now it's time for me to take the floor. I'm going to sound like Mike Reed from EastEnders, but that's fine. But I found it fascinating. And as I've kind of said, the more I know about it, the more I kind of wish we could have seen something. I don't know. For me, this kind of gets filed in that same category as Superman Lives. I know a film that never actually got to see the light of day, but there's a weird curiosity to it, and as I said earlier, there's something in there that I do like, and I like the performances, and if anything, the fact that this film spawned those stories about Nicolas Cage, it deserves to be, it deserves to exist on that alone. Do you know what I mean? For Nicolas Cage to confront Seth Rogen about, hey, did you steal my fucking Rastafarian? My Jamaican guy, and give it to James Franco is enough for me for this film to exist. Let alone it being quite fun and doesn't need to be derided as some people seem to do with the film.
Yeah. No.
So let's move on to some impossible questions I always ask at the end of this podcast, Jack. The first one being, which Coppola family member would you keep, but in doing so you get rid of the entire filmography of the rest of the family?
Fuck! So I gotta keep one. Maybe I keep Matthew Shire. Just for Shrek Forever After.
You a big Shrek Forever After fan? That's the fourth one,
Not,
right?
Yeah, not really, but I don't know. Like, why not? Like he I feel like Matt Shire, like he gets pushed around. He's not really like who he could be. I feel like maybe if he didn't have the ties towards his family, he'd be able to like break through.
Matt Shire as well was a production assistant on a Happy Maddison production, The House Bunny, as well.
Well, there you go. That's one of the better Happy Madison movies as well.
There you go. All roads lead back to Adam Sandler, and even with your kind of trolling answer to that question, you've led back to Happy Madison after all.
It's almost like it was calling to me. Exactly. I wonder if there are many crossovers.
I will find. Yeah,
Please. Well, I mean, obviously, there's Jason Schwartzman in Funny People.
I'm sure. I'm sure there's others elsewhere. Yeah, I have looked through the list, and I think The House Bunny may be the only actual Happy Madison production. Well, apart from Funny
Jason
People.
Schwartzman.
Yeah.
What a crew.
So, based on this film alone, and John Schwartzman's contribution to this film, are the Coppolas the greatest film family of all time?
Well, I can't say yes, can I? Because that would imply that I am not part of the greatest film family of all time, which I am. So I'm going to say no. And recommend that everybody go and watch Michael Craig in The Angry Silence.
Okay. Noted. I'll be doing that. I'll be doing that straight after this record. I'll be sucking on a lozenge, having a nice cup of tea, and watching The Angry Silence. On your
nice. I mean, they're great, but they're no Gregsons.
I think we've got a new contenders for Hollywood families as well with the Armstrongs, right? They seem like
the Armstrong. They're great.
Yeah, they're really gunning for that top spot right now.
I just imagine every morning they pick up like barbells, but not like the traditional barbells, like those old strongman ones with the sort of rounded weights at the end, and they wear like sort of like old-fashioned swimming costumes, like red and white striped onesies.
I reckon what they do as well is at breakfast, because they all live in one massive house, is they gather around the breakfast table and share like scars every morning, even though they've seen them, and kind of like
Jaws.
Yeah, they're kind of like, do you know what I mean, bending their noses back, being like, look, there's no cartilage left in this. It's like, you see that, that was the Green Hornet, that scar, that was from that flip, and they know exactly, do you know what I mean? It's like Vic Armstrong's been like, you see that on my neck? That's a whip mark from Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom, that one. That's Raiders of the Lost Ark, this mark on my side right here. Yeah, I reckon that's how they live their life.
The only thing available for breakfast is grapefruit and bacon.
Yeah. They get out of their one massive bed that they all sleep in matching nighties with the sleeping caps, like Ebenezer Scrooge.
I want like you remember the Osbournes reality series? I want that for the Armstrongs.
Yeah. They go down their fireman's pole that they have in their house as well, straight down to the. I'm thinking it's a mixture of the Ghostbusters.
Probably the most normal people in the world.
Oh yeah, they're British as well. They're a British family as well. But in my head, they live in a kind of mixture of Wallace and Gromit's house and the Ghostbusters like base.
I think they live in the Brady Bunch house.
Yes, yeah, we'll have that. Yeah. It's a mixture of all three. That's how they live their life.
What a joy! What an absolute joy the Armstrongs are.
Well,
At home with the Armstrongs.
At home with the Armstrongs. Yeah, maybe there's like the Osbournes, there's a member of the family who is a member of the family but just doesn't want to be on the TV series as well, and is kind of referred to but never seen.
Louis Armstrong.
So as we close off this episode, Jack, I must ask you the most important question of this podcast, and that is, what does Bill Murray say to Scarlett Johansson at the end of Lost in Translation?
You want to see these nuts?
Perfect. We're going to
He
leave
brings
that.
out a bag of peanuts.
We're going to leave that there and ask you, Jack, where can people find you and Truly Happily Madison? Sell your wares to us.
Oh, you can find me on all sorts of social media platforms such as Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, under the name JFG in Digital 3D. And you can follow the podcast, which is on hiatus at the moment, Truly Happily Madison. You can find that on all podcast providers, and you can follow it on Twitter at TrueHatMad. And get ready for season 2, which we've just announced is happening. Me and Josh have finally agreed on an idea for season 2. And I can't say much, but I'll say that audiences might be tickled pink by what we've got coming. Yeah, crack that code, Alan Turing.
Amazing. Well, Jack, thank you so much for coming and making some Coppola connections with me.
Anytime.
Once again, thank you so much to Jack Gregson for coming and joining me. He is currently in the US of A in New York City. So if you're listening over there, Jack, hope you're enjoying your time in New York City, baby. Thank you to you guys for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. The weird and wonderful tangents that we went on are thanks for indulging us in our kind of Seinfeld madness and just our general giddy madness throughout that whole episode. If you feel like we missed anything or might disagree with us, you might think that this is an absolute steamy pile of shit of a film, don't hesitate to get in touch. You can do so by heading over to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook and Letterboxd at Caged In Pod. Or if you want to be a bit more secretive about it, you want to keep it all a bit hush, bit secret squirrel, you can drop me an email, which is cagedinpod@gmail.com. As for what is next week on the podcast, we are going back to what was supposed to be this week. Those keen-eared listeners will be thinking, hey, this episode wasn't Palo Alto. Well, that is next week. And next week, I will, of course, be joined by the lovely Daisy Edwards from the fantastic W-rated podcast, which right now, whenever you're listening to this, you can listen to my guest appearance on that when I talked about the #1 bottom-rated film on IMDb's bottom 100 list, Disaster Movie. It was an absolute joy to record with both Daisy and Claire. So yeah, do check that out. And do make sure you return next week when we'll be talking... We try to avoid to talk about James Franco in this episode, but I feel like next week we're going to be talking about James Franco quite a bit, seeing as one of the stars of Gia Coppola's directorial debut. If you enjoyed this episode or any other episode of the podcast and would like to support us, you can head on over to patreon.com/cagedinpod, where for as little as $3 or £2.50, you can sign up to get the exclusive Patreon series Movie Brat Bros, where we're currently on our first season looking at all of the films of Brian De Palma. Last week I was joined by the fantastic Mary Wilde to talk about Raising Cain, and next week I will be joined by both Matt Brothers, hey Matt, a friend of the podcast, love ya, and first time guest on the podcast as a whole, Mark Searby, who's written a book all about Al Pacino called The Movies Behind the Man. And we'll be talking about Brian De Palma's 1993 crime drama thriller, Carlito's Way. So yeah, you'll get that. Next week is a fortnightly show. And as I said, it's dirt cheap. So get on over. Join the family. So if you don't want to depart with any of your money, you can support the podcast by leaving us a fantastic 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Acast, Spotify, wherever you can leave a review. We want them. We want those brand spanking, lovely, jubbly 5-star ratings and reviews. Always in your review, let me know, what does Bill Murray say to Scarlett Johansson at the end of Lost in Translation? Kind of want to do a little super cut of all of those when we finally eventually get to that episode. Will it be the last episode? Will it be the 100th episode? I'm not entirely sure, but we will get to it at some point. So as always, guys, I've been Petros Patsilivus, your guide through the crazy world of the Coppola family tree. Remember to keep it caged in, and I'll catch you next week.